Welcome to the Cybersecurity Simplified podcast, where we take the mystery out of today's top security threats and solutions. Cybercrime is relentless and keeping cybersecurity pros on their toes, looking for creative and cutting-edge solutions to secure their operations. Worldwide investment in cybersecurity is now nearly $250 billion a year. Yes, that is with a B, $250 billion. What's behind this huge number? In this episode, we'll discuss the macro trends in cybersecurity and what they mean for managed security service providers and their business customers. And to help us out, we've invited one of the IT channel's preeminent analysts, Jay McBain, Chief Analyst at Canalys, to join us today. Stay tuned for Jay's analysis of the current and future state of managed cybersecurity. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm your co-host, Susanna Song.
And I'm co-host David Barton.
And guys, I heard Jay speak recently at the Cyber Defense Ecosystem event in Houston. And what he shared, the stats really blew me away. If you are in managed service or managed security services, or you're an IT or a reseller or distributor, this should make you pause and reconsider your revenue goals. And we'll get to some of those statistics in a minute. But if you're not in this space, I don't want you to tune out because it might have you start thinking about the shift toward outsourcing for cybersecurity for various reasons. We talk about this on our podcast, the whole challenge of talent retention, tool sprawl, higher CapEx that doesn't align with your budget. Your CFO's coming down on you, right? And I thought, David, maybe we start this episode laying the foundation of what this channel security space looks like. Because we do have career-focused, security-minded folks who really probably don't know what this niche is. They probably don't even know that it exists. So what is this idea of a managed security service provider, what you'll often hear as MSSP?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we talk about a lot about is the shortage of people, right? You touched on that, Susanna. There's too many tools and there's not enough expertise on understanding what the tools are telling you. And so as you've seen through COVID, the reduction in IT staff, they're losing people who understand what the tools tell them. And so they're behind the curve in terms of how do I protect what's important? My people, my data, my intellectual property. And so the channel over time has emerged as a viable alternative to standing up your own internal resources to do something. For years, it was purely, and Jay's got some stats on this. It was purely an IT play, right? Let's outsource server management. Let's outsource patching. Let's outsource, help desk. And it's evolved to let's outsource security in general, right? Let's have someone who's around the clock watching the bells and whistles at night. And I think what you've seen, Susanna, specifically to answer your question, MSSPs are really designed to be that partner for the MSP in the channel context, who don't have the cyber expertise, who don't have the tooling, who don't have the facilities, the 7x24 team of folks. And that's how it's evolved. And what'll be really interesting is how it continues to evolve. And I think, Jay, that's where I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
In some of the Susanna, neither one of us can say statistics today, and where it's going.
Yeah, let's just say stats. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, Jay, for those who are watching on YouTube, thanks for following us. Jay, give us your take. Did David answer that? So did it suffice? What are you seeing? What are some macro trends you're seeing in your research?
Yeah, I think as an analyst, into the stats and the numbers behind the scenes, but the world economy is growing less than 3% this year. The tech industry, which makes up about 5% of the world's economy, is growing at 6%, double that. And cybersecurity, which is about 5% of the tech industry, So 250 billion, or like like to say, a quarter of a trillion with a T, makes up about 5% of what businesses and governments spend around the world on their entire technology and telco spend per year. So it's growing at 12. So it's obviously a fast moving space, but underneath that, there's a different element. So when you said 250 billion, 2/3 of that is services. So when you
Wow.
think of cybersecurity companies, when you think of Palo Alto or Microsoft or Cisco Splunk, or you think about CrowdStrike, Zscaler, Fortinet,
Mhm.
SonicWall. My wife works at SonicWall. You think about cybersecurity companies, they're going after an $87 billion opportunity. For every dollar they sell of hardware and software, there's $2 of services. And that services piece is actually growing faster than the hardware and software. So it's growing faster. And then the managed component of the services is growing the fastest. So if you want to be right now with a pretty challenging headwinds in the
Mhm.
world economy, in a business that's growing at 15% compounded every year, as far as the eye can see, that's why there's such a focus. And that's why there's such a large number. We're talking to the millions of people now
Mhm.
leaning into certifications and competencies, really helping 334 million end clients with security. So that growth in services, that growth in managed services, which makes up about 1-to-1. For every dollar of hardware and software, about $1 of managed services around it. And then all of the pieces underneath that to really drive, where there's some pretty fast growth in this industry.
And who is the end customer? Who are the ones that are seeking that managed
Yeah.
services
So
provider?
yeah, this is really interesting. So David mentioned, kind of that end customer. And I go back 30 years in this industry, and I happened to work at IBM during the days where we all thought our jobs were going to be outsourced to India. But even during the height of that outsourcing boom in the 90s, only about 30% of companies outsourced. In the first 20 years of managed services, the interesting thing from an SMB perspective is only about 30% of SMBs outsourced some or all of their IT. And so this magic number of only about a third of people would do it.
Mhm.
Cybersecurity broke that about 5 years ago forever. And we're at a point now where 82% of companies outsource
Mhm.
some or all of their IT. And pretty much the reason that it went up so high is security. Whether you're the biggest bank, Bank of America, you're the federal government, or you're a small flower shop, no one can do cybersecurity alone. You can't get enough resources. You don't have enough 24/7, threat remediation. You can't get to a SASE or a zero trust model if that's what you're going after. You just can't do it. And it's gone to this, we need a team. This is now a team sport,
Mhm.
and we can never be ahead of the bad guys unless we all come together and fight it together. And so this 82% number means that there are now hundreds of millions of companies around the world that need help with cybersecurity. And it's more of a services problem than it
Mm.
is actually to find a magic, mousetrap that will solve all of our, issues end to end.
Yeah, I like the word forever. 82% over it, or forever, but 82 plus, right? 82% plus. That is incredible. Are you seeing then more MSSPs, or I shouldn't use an acronym, more managed service security providers out there? Are they coming from that MSP track, or are you seeing them sprawl just entrepreneurs saying, "Hey, there's a market for this. Let's build a a company around providing a managed security service."
Yeah, we're seeing it from different angles. So today, if you look at managed services, there are now 335,000 companies around the world that have at least one managed contract, taking advantage of that big outsourcing.
Mhm.
So that was a big move from the VAR channel, which would be in the 1980s, the IBM, Microsoft, Cisco, compact channel of the 80s. Most of those, 2/3 of those have at least got their first managed contract. And, 86,000 of those have, got to a business level of 30% of their business recurring. So this is managed services itself is over a $500 billion business. It's,
Mhm.
it's twice as large, actually more than twice as large as cybersecurity. So it's a massive opportunity. What's come out of that is a small set of MSSPs who have decided to shut down things like help desk, break fix, PC deployments, running cables, and say, there's enough opportunity in this 15% compounded growth market for us to double that growth and just be cybersecurity. So that's one element of MSSPs. The other faster growing element is what is supporting the broader MSP market and the broader VAR channel. Because again, the average MSP has 8 people and the customer has access to LinkedIn so they can see the owner principal. They can see all 7 of your employees. They can read their resumes back to high school. And they know that your 8 people aren't staying up 24/7, in threat detection mode and covering your surface area and managing all these threat vectors. And they'll ask the question saying, okay, you're selling me something. Your website has all these beautiful words. Who's behind you? I want to know who's on your team. Don't just tell me that you're buying from a vendor. I want to know the people on your team that are spending 24/7 protecting us. That's the MSSP market, better known, as EDR, endpoint, MDR, or XDR. So this is kind of supporting the entire industry, provides a layer of support. And that's where it's 49.7% growth this year. So an industry that's very large, it's $9 billion in size, and it's replacing itself like every 18 months. So it's becoming really, really large. And there's an opportunity not only to serve customers, but to serve other partners who serve customers and provide that backbone and work with the 6,500 security vendors to bring their solutions to market.
Yeah. So EDR stands for endpoint detection response, and then MDR's managed detection response. And then we've talked quite a bit about XDR, which is the extended detection and response. And I know you said what I'd heard that blew me away as well is 95% of that $250 billion market is with and through partners. So is that what you're alluding to? What you just shared with us?
Yeah,
The
it's
layers of
91.
partners.
It's
Oh, 91.
91.5.
Okay.
But this is interesting. I mean, if you look at the $5 trillion tech industry, it's 73% to, through, and with partners. I mean, it's a massive amount. It's world trade. If you go up to the world numbers, all things, 75% of world trade goes independently, indirectly. So you bought a car through a dealer, you bought a TV from a retailer, a jar of peanut butter from a grocer. In the tech industry, it's pretty close to that at 73. But cybersecurity is 91.5. So when you go down those big vendors that I just mentioned, there are, many of them 100% channel, 100% of what they sell. So if you think you're going to come out as a, security vendor and go sell direct like a Salesforce or a ServiceNow type of company might, or Dell did in the, 80s and early 90s, you're just not going to do it because over 90% of your customers surround themselves with partners because they see it as a team sport. And you got to work well with the channel. You got to work well with partnerships and alliances, a broader ecosystem of over 1 million people that I mentioned. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. I will say when I first started at Highwire and even with this podcast, the channel world really scared me. It was very daunting to learn about all the layers, and then I'd start going to these shows, and everybody kind of knows everyone because people move around, and I try to explain what the channel is to some of my friends outside of industry. They're like, "What?" Like, it could be confusing, but I think people in the IT world really do understand that team mentality and that you're relying on different partners. And we like to say partners instead of vendors, like truly working with someone to meet your needs.
There's a way to oversimplify it. Because, when I say that I work in the channel, none of my family understands what I do.
Right.
If you go back to the, buying a car from a dealer, you go back to I bought a Dell computer direct. Well, did you know that Dell is now a $100 billion company and 60% indirect? Well, I bought my car insurance, 15 minutes saved me 15%. Well, do you know that Geico sells more insurance now through brokers and agents than it does through that 15-minute campaign?
Right.
One company that refused to go channel, went bankrupt, which is Tupperware last year. They didn't get into Target or Amazon quick enough. That's the channel. Everything we do in our daily lives personal and professional, go through channels. So that's what we do for a living. But when you get into a considered purchase, like you're not buying peanut butter now, you're buying something like $1 million worth of security. You're going to wrap yourself around a team that
Yeah.
understands you, your industry, your compliance, the country you're in, the different regulatory situation, the segment you're in, the size of your company, the different layers of the 6,500 tools you could buy, the different models from product-led growth to perpetual to subscription to consumption to managed service. I mean, I need a whole team that understands this to get me to the finish line and protects my company.
Well, and I
That's
think
channel. And that's what we
I,
do. Canalys is Latin for channel. So all we focus on
Oh,
is
okay.
the 7 trusted people on average around every buyer. That's the channel.
Interesting. Go ahead,
yeah,
David.
I was gonna say that, you know, when you talk about buying security, you're versus that jar of peanut butter, Jay, you know, you typically are buying your peanut butter on price. Even if, you have a particular flavor you like, you're still looking at a price conversation. I've been telling sales teams for years, you're selling trust. And trust is not something you get overnight. One, two, trust is at 2 a.m. when I pick up the phone, are they going to answer? And I'll
Right.
buy a lesser product or a lesser service from someone in the channel that I trust that I can get out of bed at 2 a.m. Versus, you know, the best bells and whistles, but nobody's going to be behind it protecting me. So, Jay, I think you're right on the money. I love what you have to say.
Yeah. So one interesting thing about trust, by the end of this year, the majority buyer of that $250 billion in cybersecurity will be a millennial. So we're going through
Yeah.
a demographic shift. They're digital first, digital only buyers. 75% of them, according to a survey a couple of weeks ago, don't want to talk to a human.
Mhm.
They'll buy a car, which is the second most expensive thing you buy, without ever talking to a human and buying it
Right.
digitally and having it delivered.
Or
So
even
same thing
driving
with
it.
security. I'll buy
Right.
$1 million of security. So the answer on trust is who already is there, who already is built around those 7 trusted seats of the customer.
Right. You're
And
right.
they've earned that trust over decades. It could be a digital agency. It could be an accountancy. It could be a bar. It could be a system integrator. I mean, there's 20 different kind of partner types, but they've been there through the good and the bad, the thick and the thin. And earning trust today, especially digitally, is this digital word of mouth. It's if my trusted network of people who have never, set me astray are saying good things about you and are introducing you when I have problems at the right time, the only way in, that 91% through the channel, the only way in is through that trusted network of 7 people. And either they endorse you in or they block you out. They create so much friction that it blocks
Right.
you out. So there's no direct to customer. Nobody picks up emails. Nobody picks up the phone. There's no direct to customer the way there was with baby boomers and Gen X. I need
Hmm.
to surround every buyer and I have to earn one of those 7 seats over time. But if I don't have one of those 7 seats today, it's a prospect, it's a new buyer. I have to work with the other 7 people who did earn those seats and add value.
That's interesting. What are, as we close here, Jay, what are some other trends that Canalys and even for yourself as an analyst is seeing for this year and beyond in this particular space?
Well, there's huge. I mean, the biggest one would be the new buyer. A second trend that's happening now that is happening to all of us is the end of the cookie. So when every company can no longer buy buyer intent data and find out what buyers are doing in those early moments, it's the people that surround the buyer. It's the ebooks, the white papers, the podcasts like this one that people listen to that drive influence. So there's going to be a whole lineup of people out the door trying to partner with you to, get a trusted voice into your audience that you've now built over 49 episodes,
Mhm.
right? So this is a big change that's happening. Nothing to do with the channel, but the partner is the actually answer to us not being the products on the internet anymore.
Yeah.
There's a different economics of partnering happening. For 43 years, we paid at the point of sale. Every partner would have to collect the customer's money to get the riches of the margin and the market development funds. That's completely changing where, marketplaces are selling more cybersecurity than anything else right now. They're growing at 86%. So it's actually not the reseller selling, it's a digital marketplace serving this new buyer.
Hmm.
And in that case, the private offers, the multi-partner offers, how all the economics play out. Big companies like Microsoft are putting out point systems that take the money away from that point of sale, the margin, and spreading it like peanut butter, keep on that theme, throughout before, during, and after. Every company's now in subscription consumption mode, meaning you have to
Yeah.
re-earn customer every 30 days forever. Every managed service provider, every subscription vendor has to do that. So we're completely rethinking what it means to partner, how you make money as a partner, and how we're going to work together in the future. That's all happening at once. And then cybersecurity, the final big one is it's going into the platform mode this year. Again, we have 6,500 tool makers and not a market that you normally have. In hyperscalers, there's 3 of them. In CRM, there's 3. In marketing automation, there's 4. There's these super large valued companies that have all the integrations, have all the services partners, have all the alliances, the customer. There's a whole set of gravity. And now with 6,500 contenders, there's going to be 4, at maximum 5 platform spots given. Then the other 6,000 are going to have to come in and integrate into these platforms. And the platforms are who own the marketplace, who own kind of the whole ecosystem. So that's a whole other idea for a future podcast. I just wrote 5,000 words on it last week on LinkedIn. I just did a 91-page report with HubSpot, a major platform, looking at the big 50, showing cybersecurity where it's going to end up. When Microsoft and Cisco Splunk and Palo Alto and CrowdStrike, when they become these larger platforms, what happens to everybody else, including all the services partners?
Hmm.
Huge trend.
Yeah. We'll definitely link that. I'll find it on your LinkedIn, and you and I can talk offline, and we'll make sure to link that on our YouTube as well as our podcast landing page. And if you want more information from Jay, I'm sure link in with him. I did that. I didn't know Jay before I asked him to be a guest, and so he was very kind to join us today. David, any final thoughts from these trends? And you've been a practitioner for many years. Any of this surprise you? Is this where you saw things going as well?
Um, I think for our audience, that the key takeaway of this is in the past, your parents, they're going to tell you, go find a great company that you've heard of, reputable, et cetera. And dig in and grow your career. I think, Jay, what I've taken away from this, and I hope our audience does as well, is a channel is a viable place for you to get a career and to grow, because it's only going to continue to grow as well. More opportunities, more companies, consolidation. Um, there's probably not a better place for a cybersecurity practitioner to be than in an MSSP serving lots of customers. You get to see the breadth of the attacks. You get to see the breadth of the technologies. And if you want to be the best, the channel is probably the most underserved place as well, especially in the mid-market SMB for cybersecurity. So, you know, my hope for our listeners is to take this, explore the channel. There's tons of places you can get resources. There's tons of jobs out there in the channel, and helping a bunch of companies versus helping one, to me is satisfying. So, that's what I would take away, Susanna.
Yeah. And what one plug too for MSPs. Your clients think you're providing cybersecurity, and you heard the data from Jay this in this episode. There is a market, and I wish I had led this episode by using the $250 billion with a T instead of the 250 billion. I mean, both they're
You gotta do the Dr. Evil.
right.
Right.
But there's an opportunity for you guys. If you and there are so many MSSPs there who are trusted authorities. I'd say, find one that you trust and figure out a plan to grow your business and provide the right security for your clients. Well, thank you to our guest, Jay McBain, and thank you so much to our listeners for joining us. If you have Any feedback about today's podcast or questions for David, Jay, myself, please contact us at podcast@highwirenetworks.com or leave a comment below. Until next time, I'm Susanna Song.
And I'm Dave Barton.
And you're listening to Cybersecurity Simplified. From all of us here at Overwatch by Highwire Networks, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, rate the episodes you enjoyed, share, and leave us a comment. We'll catch you next time on the Cybersecurity Simplified podcast. Remember, the more you know about cybersecurity, the safer you'll be. To learn more, visit us at highwirenetworks.com/podcast.